Welcome to Not Just Money with your hosts, Doretta and Li. This isn't your typical podcast about finances. It's a podcast about all the money conversations we aren't having, sometimes not even with ourselves. Join us on this journey of hard truths, lived experience, and the wisdom that comes from both. Because money is never just about money.
Hey Lee, the summer holidays are officially here. And God,
Woohoo!
it so feels like it today, which is Canada Day for those of you listening. 35 degrees centigrade, well over 40 with the humidex. It is hot.
Yeah, it's way too hot for me. But I noticed that your cafe tan is coming along.
And it is. So do you
I
have
can even
any?
tell from the screen.
Yeah. So anyway, do you have any trips planned for the summer now that little girls officially finished school? Since our theme today is going to be travel.
Honestly, I love staying in Toronto for the summer. I find as I get older, I really enjoy being home more. I don't know if this is an age thing, and it's really lovely here with a gazillion possibilities for day trips, staycations, all that. I will head over to London, Ontario, not the other one, because that's where my in-laws live. What about you?
Well, I am actually heading out to Winnipeg tomorrow, but just for a few days to visit family. I'm really looking forward to it. I've been to Winnipeg quite a few times, mostly with you. I remember all those February trips.
Brr.
Oh, but I hear it's really a fun place in the summertime. But
It's nice.
yeah,
Yeah.
lots of festivals and things going on. But unlike you, I really like to be here for the summer. So other than that, no trips planned until the fall. Then I'm off to England and my husband is off to Uzbekistan. But that's a whole other story.
And I'm not even gonna ask. Yeah, pre-COVID, I would take about 2 trips a year with my mom, a big one and a little one. And since then, like, the whole family has done some traveling, but not really this year, as my mom had both of her knees replaced, so we haven't been able to do much. I have planned a sunny getaway around the winter holidays for a week, so I'm definitely looking forward to that, or I will when it starts getting colder.
It sounds like fun, and I totally get that. We did that for a lot of years. I never considered it a holiday, though. I considered it preventive health care, that you see there really is a place in the world where the sun shines and it's warm. Okay. So, as I said, we're going to be talking about travel today, since July and August are the traditional times for holidays in Canada. For those with kids or those who teach kids, the schools are all out. Weather's great. What's not to love? But a word of warning for our lovely listeners, this is going to be a bit of an idiosyncratic exploration of travel. We are both pretty experienced, and we definitely have some budget tips and ideas to share based on that experience. But we're going to be looking at a lot more than that. Because when it comes to travel, like everything else we talk about here, it's never just about money.
If we're to be honest, for budgeting tips, there are so many other resources and folks whose whole jobs are catered around traveling, budget or luxury or both. And I don't think we would necessarily have any what I would call like inside scoops. But also, word of warning, if you're one of those selfie crazy people who photographs everything and ultimately sees nothing because it's all about the gram or whatever, then maybe this episode is not for you. Make your bucket list, tick them off, and good luck.
Not so fast. Maybe it could be for the Instagrammers too. I mean,
Ooh.
maybe we can inspire them to think beyond the gram, but I will warn you this time, I'm the one that's going to be super judgy because I have pretty much had it with sweet young things posing ad nauseum, climbing over barriers, standing in the middle of walkways, blocking everybody else's view. Travel is not a photo shoot, people. You may be the star of your own life, But monuments are not your backdrops. Museums are not your studios, and the rest of us are not your unpaid extras standing around waiting for you to finish. So maybe put your phone down and actually experience where you are. Okay, end of rant.
Lols. I love it when I am not the judgy one. It's rare, but it happens. Yeah, my favorite experience with this is at the Louvre. It kills me how many people take pictures with the Mona Lisa, either of her or with her. First, you know there are 12 versions of that painting, and the Louvre rotates them as to not degrade the OG one. So you might not have even taken the picture of the real one. And really, buy the damn postcard. Enjoy the room. I also feel bad for the other paintings in the hall. Some of them are equally wonderful. I want to say the Wedding Feast of Cana is in there. And I think it's actually the biggest painting in the Louvre. And I challenge folks if they've ever noticed it there.
Hard to notice anything there. It's so jammed with this surprisingly small painting and behind all the
It's so
bulletproof glass
small.
and stuff, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes, and it's actually over the years have just gotten worse. I've been to it a couple of times.
They're moving it. Did you know?
Um, oh,
Yeah,
where?
they're building a new gallery just for it in the basement, I think, or somewhere underneath. They're going to be building its own gallery.
I wonder if that's gonna make the experience better or worse.
No. But at least we
TBD.
get to see the
Okay.
other paintings.
Yeah, I think it's just a shame. The Louvre is so big, right? You would go around and you'd only have time to see the most famous ones, quote unquote, but I think it's a missed opportunity. Okay, but back on topic. Let's think about how to get the most real value from travel. And note I said the most real value, not the cheapest price. Although, to be fair, there is also a time and place for that. Hello, we've all been students.
That's a really important distinction. I know it's trite to say, but travel can be enormously powerful. It expands our horizons, it opens us up to the world, it breaks down barriers. And by doing that, we learn about ourselves and we learn about what home means.
Aw, there you go, being all poetic and philosophical. But travel can be equally awful, exhausting, disappointing, a waste of money.
Business trips like that, Winnipeg in February.
Actually, those were not disappointing.
That's true.
And
That's true.
have
Lovely
like
people.
haven't we
Lovely
all?
people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't do anything about it being winter peg. Um, but yes, I 100% agree with you. I think the place to start with travel is to ask yourself why you want to travel, what you're seeking, because the answer to that question will actually shape a lot of the decisions you make about traveling. Knowing your why is what can help you make sure you get the most real value from traveling and not just your travel dollars, right? It's about the value of your travel time. There's nothing worse than coming back from a trip exhausted and grumpy and wishing you'd never gone.
So, you and I both traveled a lot, as we've both talked about. You've traveled more widely than I have, all 7 continents by the time you were 32, as you like to remind me. I haven't
As often as I can.
I haven't covered as much distance, but I've probably traveled to some places rather more deeply, stayed in places longer, visited and revisited the same places to really go deep in them, explore new dimensions, all that kind of stuff, right? So, why don't we start with our personal whys? How did the travel passion start with you?
We never had any money to travel when I was a kid. The only trip I remember is driving to Houston, Texas to see family. Now that was one long ass road trip. So, when I went off to post secondary, I actually chose a program that had an exchange built into it. So, I did international business and chose Paris as my exchange location. The interesting thing is that once you're in Europe, it's actually really cheap to travel. It's also a lot smaller than Canada.
Yeah.
You drive 45 minutes, you've maybe crossed 2 countries. Um, and there are just a lot more ways to travel and more competition. So that's where it all began, from Cergy-Pontoise, just outside of Paris, to the world. So how about you?
Really 2 early trips that shape how I look at travel and why I'm so passionate about it. The first was a school trip when I was 15, which really opened my eyes to the world. All the senior students in my high school flew to Livorno in Italy, got on a ship, and spent 2 weeks cruising the Mediterranean. And we went to Pisa, Alexandria, Cairo, Haifa, Jerusalem, Bethlehem, Santorini, and Venice. It was organized by our Latin teacher. The locations probably hint at that. And it was an absolutely life-changing experience.
OMG. Now I finally get it. Your obsession with Italy. Doretta is constantly going to Italy. Like, constantly.
Different parts. And of that first trip, my memories are really all crowded together. And honestly, I think I was too young and too inexperienced, and to be honest, too full of teenage hormones to appreciate a lot of it. I got my first kiss on that trip on the deck of the ship as we sailed past Sicily at dusk, watching Mount Stromboli's constant little eruptions.
Oh god. Okay. Of course that's when that happened. I don't even remember my first kiss. Okay.
Sure.
Anyways, continue.
So, my most vivid memory, though, is actually of poverty as I had never imagined it in my life. And I remember we stopped to use the bathrooms on the road from Alexandria to Cairo, and there was this girl my age, and her job, her life was offering bits of toilet paper to each girl, woman as they entered the bathroom. It just broke my heart. I can still see her face in my mind. So
Mm.
that was the first trip. The second trip was a few years later. It was backpacking in England and Western Europe for 5 months with my husband after our undergraduate degrees. I had a glimpse of how big and how different the world was on the first trip. But on the second trip, I learned what home meant. That's weird. But so I was born in England while my father was studying there. And I was less than a year old when my parents went back to Canada, came back to Canada. And from the time I was a really little girl, it always bothered me that I had never seen where I was born. So I made a pilgrimage to that little town outside of Portsmouth to see this house I'd only seen in photographs. And it meant absolutely nothing to me, nothing. And that was the moment that I knew I was deeply and truly Canadian. And that was reinforced a month later in Paris when we made another pilgrimage to see the great Impressionist paintings. And again, I thought they were very pretty. I loved them. I did. I still love them. But they did not move me with that raw sense of landscape that, say, the group of seven did and still does. Different sense of land, different sense of space, different sense of time.
I really love those reflections. And thank you for sharing things that are so deeply personal. But I think this goes back to what you were saying a moment earlier. Many folks see travel as a way to show off, but it can be so much more. It can be transcendent. I love that first kiss story and understanding your identity. That's huge. Only through the journey do we find ourselves. But generally speaking, though, I think most of us will start with very practical ideas, and then hopefully, in your case, life happens. So we often ask ourselves, what is it that we're looking for? Relaxation, exploring a new culture, learning a language, seeing family, to challenge yourself, or maybe you just need a break. But honestly, there is no single right way or reason to travel. The best trip is the one that matches your purpose and priorities and financial realities. We are still a money podcast.
On the way to self discovery,
Yes, that too.
Okay, one thing I would say in this regard, though, unless you're traveling alone, it's also really important to align your why, your personal why, with the whys of your traveling companions. Because whether it's your partner, your parent, your kid, your friends, it takes a lot of honesty and mutual respect.
So true. Traveling with kids or an aged parent, for example, you need to pace yourself very differently.
Oh, yeah. We used to do road trips with our kids in the summers, and this was the days before Airbnbs, and we had 2 rules. 1, stop by 5 PM at a hotel or a motel with a good pool, and 2, separate adjoining rooms. That way, the kids could have a really good swim before and after dinner, tire themselves out, go to bed. And yeah, the extra room cost more, but it meant we could have a pleasant evening, everybody got a good night's sleep, and that just made the whole trip more pleasant. And for us, that was priceless.
Yeah, I was either too broke or too cheap for 2 rooms. So, I don't know what that's like, but that sounds awesome. For me, traveling with my mom was really about understanding her pace and taking it easy. By the time I started traveling with my mom, I was no longer the "I must hit everything on this list in this location" kind of person. And with a kid, it's all about flexibility and not being hung up on anything. Plans change instantaneously and constantly.
Oh, yeah. I think though that traveling with friends can actually be even more challenging, especially if you haven't been completely transparent about money, what your budgets are, how costs will be shared.
Yes, I've heard some really awful stories from friends whose holidays were ruined when they turned out to be incompatible travel companions, especially when it turns out they had different budgets and there was a lot of resentment about who could afford to do what.
Yeah, I've heard stories like that too, and not just ruined holidays, actual ruined friendships. I'm traveling with an old friend this fall while my husband is off in Uzbekistan. I'll be spending a week at her place in the Cotswolds doing Cotswoldy things, and then we're going to go to France together for a week. But we are really excellent travel companions. We're already making our list of what we want to do. We check in with each other. We keep a running tab of all the costs. We split them evenly. And I treat her to a few things, like a few special meals out, at least one very fancy high tea because we both love it. And because I'm staying at her place, she does the driving. But it's absolute transparency around the money part of it, or it will ruin everything.
Yeah, I think that transparency is just as important when traveling with a spouse, really. That was a new thing for me. My husband and I travel very differently. I think he mostly caters to me, and I try to carve out time for him to be him and make sure there are meals that he would like. But he rarely eats breakfast, so I always get to decide that.
I get that. I do. And honesty and respect, it's critical. My husband and I have literally been traveling together for more than 50 years. Too much information, but he was the boy who kissed me on that ship watching that volcano.
Oh
And
god. Ugh.
I don't
Okay.
know how you're supposed to react. You're supposed to go, "Oh,"
Eh, eh. I'm not
but
the sentimental type, we know that.
yeah, actually, he's a sentimental type, but there you go. Most of the time, we choose destinations together. It's something we share with really equal passion because we've been doing it together for so long, discovering bits of the world together.
Mm.
Sometimes it'll be something special for just one of us, indulging one another's passion. A few years ago, my husband actually arranged for us to see the entire Ring cycle over a week in Berlin, and he hates Wagner.
No. Just no. In some countries, probably other than Germany, that would be considered torture. 17 hours of Wagnerian? Is that how you pronounce it? Wagner-esque?
Wagnerian, dear,
Opera?
Wagnerian.
Wagner, yeah, German operas? No, thank you. That poor man. I hope he got more than a kiss.
Hey, I do go to baseball games. Fair's fair. and
Sometimes.
yeah,
Sometimes.
once or twice if
And you're
it's
there for a beer and a hot dog, okay? That's your 1-year pilgrimage, okay. And what about that time?
but
Was it the stained glass windows, Canterbury? Why does that memory peak in my mind right now?
right ever since
Like, the church?
yep, it
Every
was
day for a week?
I had always wanted ever since I read Sons and Lovers, that's a D.H. Lawrence novel, in I had which is about the father of the sisters in Women in Love. Anyway, the male protagonist in that story is a carver, and he knows, I think it's York Cathedral, one of the big English cathedrals, really intimately. And ever since I read that book, I wanted to get to know a single cathedral really well. So we picked Canterbury Cathedral and we went all day, every day for a week, most of the day for a week. Got to see it in different lights, different times of day. It was wonderful, but he was pretty into that. Yes, it was my dream to do it, but honestly, he was really into it.
Okay, fair enough.
And sometimes we have to do separate holidays. I go to England and France, he's going to Uzbekistan. Sometimes you just have to indulge your own whys. Anyway, the point is, it really is about respect and transparency.
This is a reason I do love cruises. I won't lose anyone, but everyone can do their own thing, and there's lots of space in between us. I know it's awful for the environment, but when you have a senior and a toddler in tow, you'll have to forgive me.
You'll have to forgive yourself. Okay.
You've never been on a cruise,
I've
so,
so been on a cruise.
love it.
I have been on 6 cruises, as a matter of fact. Okay, okay. Before we get into some of our own travel tips and practicalities, I want to say something about anticipation because once you've been really thoughtful about the why of your travel and chosen the where, and as I say, we'll get to the how in a minute, but one of the greatest pleasures of travel actually starts before you leave home. It's about researching your destination. It's about anticipating what it is you're going to do, learning about things, preparing yourself, maybe learning a few words of the language if it's one you're not familiar with. Do you remember the episode we did on happiness? Psychologists have actually found that anticipating a positive experience can boost your happiness almost as much as the actual experience itself. So, my advice would be don't treat planning as a chore. Let yourself enjoy it. Read, savor, imagine. It's part of the joy.
It's funny, but you are so right. I don't get to do that anymore. I downloaded the responsibility for this to my husband, and then I wondered why traveling for me had lost so much of its pizzazz. I used to buy all the books. Do they even have Lonely Planets or travel books anymore? I'm not even sure.
I
And
do.
and I yeah, and I used stickies for all the places and
Aw,
restaurants I wanted to try.
aw,
Then that book looks like it's super well read and
yeah,
there's, marks
love it.
across it. Huh, maybe that's what I've been missing.
Yeah. I like to read novels about where I'm going. They say history tells you what happened and novels tell you how it felt. I like that. I
Mm.
like to immerse myself in how it felt. And also the poets. There are some places where reading the poetry beforehand can be so special. I read a lot of Lorca before and during our trips to Spain, and a lot of Neruda for the trip we did around the tip of South America from Chile to Argentina. And I'll tell you, you can read all the magical realism you want and enjoy it, but I don't think you really get it unless you've been to South America. Disney
Oh.
tried with Encanto, and it's a start, but it doesn't tell you what you need to know.
You know what? I'm gonna say that's a pro tip. I think that's great advice. It's about how do you maximize the enjoyment of a trip, of a location? Okay, let's talk some practicalities about travel. Though I have to say, in my experience, that we're not really back to what I would deem pre COVID travel rules yet. though we seem to be moving in that direction. So let's start with flights. Now, the current geopolitical landscape has really affected both routes and flights. But generally speaking, it still seems to be true that booking early in off season will generally work in your favor. So, what does that mean or what does that look like? Booking winter vacations in summer, especially for Christmas or the winter holidays, and summer vacations in winter. Now, I personally sign up for Google Flight Alerts, so I get regular updates on costs. And I set them up for places on my list to visit or just places I have friends that I want to pop into to see. And I think it does a couple of things. One is it lets you know when there's a good deal, but also it helps to anchor you on what that price range could be. So you can actually tell the difference when a good deal comes up. Because I think that's really important and how we view costs and how we evaluate what's a good deal and what's not.
Yeah. Yeah, and even things like the day of the week you travel, or even the time of day can make a difference. Generally speaking, flying midweek, early in the morning, late at night is cheaper. Really,
Yeah.
the more flexible you can be, the more likely you are to get a good deal.
But make sure you check the total price you're paying, especially with discount airlines. Flights can look cheap on the surface until you add on all the extra costs, and some of them can be really random and really hidden. The biggest one I will say is luggage, because these days, especially in Canada, like the carry on used to be just something you assumed. Now that's not the case. So you really have to learn to pack light.
Yeah. Okay, next, accommodation, hotels, Airbnbs, university residences in the summer. And if you're really adventurous, there are also hostels, and some hostels offer private rooms. My son has traveled a lot, all over Latin America, and he stays in hostels. And a couple of years ago, we met up with him for a week in Argentina, in Mendoza, which is just the loveliest, loveliest little city. And he arranged for us to stay in a private room in the same hostel that he was staying in. Now, okay, the contrast in amenities was pretty dramatic. We had just been on a fancy
Uh-huh.
cruise. See, I've been on cruises
Uh-huh.
around the tip of South America. And we
Uh-huh.
had four-star hotels in Santiago and Buenos Aires at either end of this trip. Mendoza was different. It was more like a Canadian roadside motel room. The hostel part
Yeah.
was full of young people, and the private rooms were actually mostly young business travelers. It was very clean and actually very pretty with a courtyard and trees and flowers, and it was really fun. And then all the young people in the hostel thought my husband and I were really cool. I think it cost $30 a night, including breakfast.
Yes, and I vividly remember you giving me play-by-play and sending me pictures of your room just to make sure that I knew that you were staying in a hostel. Anyways, hilarious. I used to be all about Airbnbs, but I've started going back to preferring hotels. I don't think it's a luxury thing. I think it's just less hassle and drama. And honestly, I found less work overall. Because some things can go wrong, and just hotels are built to be hotels, whereas Airbnbs, they'll tell you one thing and then all of a sudden all these things don't work. But really, you do have to do a careful comparison. So here's my take: hotels are generally more convenient and consistent, and there's always housekeeping and front desk and gyms and all the amenities, and you can cancel them a lot more easily if you need to. But parking can be really expensive, especially in cities. Airbnb style can offer more space, and when you have a kitchen, you can save money on food, especially for longer stays. But again, the quality and the service can really vary. So make sure you factor that all in when you're comparing costs, because sometimes a hotel that costs $30 more per night, but let's say includes breakfast, parking, and free cancellation, can actually be a better deal.
And I'm actually going to make a pitch for travel agents. I've started using one when things get a bit complicated, and I've discovered that they can sometimes actually get you better deals, especially on hotel rooms. We're spending some time in London later in the fall, and we always stay in the same hotel. And I decided to ask our travel agent to check the rates. I just wanted to see what she could get it for. And she was able to get rooms for $35 less per night than we could get it on any of the hotel sites or the hotel directly. $35 a night. And we're going to be there for 9 nights. So decent savings.
Yeah, and one way to manage both sanity and budget is food.
Yeah.
The first thing I do when I go to a new city is hit a local grocery store and a bakery for stuff for the room. I'll get fruits and veggies because we all know when you eat out constantly, you're always lacking those. And most days I will have breakfast at the hotel or apartment if we're in an Airbnb. I also really like to do price comparison because I'm super weird and I think it's a financial literacy thing for me because it's a wonderful way to understand the cost of living in any city that you're in.
Do I have this thing about markets and grocery stores wherever I go. I remember going into a grocery store, I had to find one in downtown Geneva. Boy, is it expensive.
Yeah, I and you know what, I also really enjoy getting local snacks. Now that I have a kid, when they're hungry,
Yep.
and it's like that minute, not 2 minutes from now. So I actually pack travel utensils with soy sauce packets and reusable water bottles. Oh, one thing is I refuse to buy water. No. Most places we're going to, tap water is fine. There is places to get free water. Also, you know how I hate wasted food. So when we're traveling, and there are generally four of us, I'll decide on what to get for the family and then order one plate less because sometimes our eyes are bigger than our stomachs, and leftovers traveling is a total waste and a nightmare.
Yep.
Okay, what else? If you don't have one, make sure you get a no foreign fee credit card. Also, game changer, also saves you a whack load of money.
Oh, that is such a good reminder. My husband has one and I don't since we generally travel together. I need to get one for my trip in the fall.
And a reminder, travel insurance. Now, check whether your credit card already includes travel medical insurance or rental car coverage insurance or trip interruption protection before you buy extra coverage. And make sure to check the fine print, but also make sure that the credit card that has the strongest insurance is the one you use to purchase the items you want to be insured. That's also key to success.
Okay, I actually want to mention eSIMs so you can avoid roaming charges, which can really add up. Now, maybe most people already know about this, but you don't know what you don't know. Basically, an eSIM lets you download a local or a regional mobile data plan, and it's usually a lot less than the roaming charge that your home provider charges. This can literally save you hundreds of dollars. I really don't understand why roaming charges are so high. My provider charges, and I just checked this, $18 a day to roam in England and France. And the eSIM I've been using charges $18.99 for 10 gigabytes over 30 days. I'll be gone for 3 weeks. You do the math.
It's so true. I think it's just a way for our telecoms to continuously fleece us. Okay. What else? Local attractions, events, museums, etc. This is one time where you should check out booking online in advance, especially in Europe these days. A lot of popular things sell out days or even weeks or even months in advance. So buying your ticket online in advance may not save you money, but it does help you avoid standing in a long queue or just disappointment of not seeing it.
I have found that if I didn't pre book tickets, the crowds often clear later in the day. We were in Paris last year and we wanted to see the changes to Notre Dame after the fire. And when we walked by one morning, it was so crowded, the lines just infinite in, you know, how they curl around themselves. But we walked by again about 3:30 in the afternoon and there was virtually no queue at all.
I mean, yeah, I think it depends, but I actually have a similar story about Notre Dame too. It was going up to see, and this was pre-fire. We were going up to the roof, and the lines were huge. I, of course, did not pre-book, and we went 30 minutes before it closed, and there was nobody. But 30 minutes was more than enough time. So, word of a wise, if something you really want to see, don't chance it. If it's something that's nice to have or nice to go to, then walk by a second time, like Doretta did. And a word of caution for passes. Now, a lot of cities, including Canadian cities, offer day passes to multiple attractions. Some of them like 1 day, 3 day, 7 day. They may look like a great deal, especially when you add up the total admission to all the places it offers. But do the math because the reality is that you may not be able to do all those things in that time frame, or the free element exhibit that is included is the one you don't actually care to see. So it kind of forces you to see so many things that you probably didn't want to, but you feel like you've spent that money. So be cognizant of what it is that you want to see and then figure out what that real cost is.
That's setting priorities, right? Do the important stuff. And if you're a member of a Canadian museum or art gallery, check out their reciprocal membership agreements. The Art Gallery of Ontario, for example, if you're a member, get free admission to about 500 museums and galleries, mostly in Canada and the US, a few international. But that's significant. Yeah. So check it out. A lot of people forget to do that.
Yes, and it can actually save you quite a bit of money. Also, check out local tours, easy online search. And now I have these wonderful European friends who do a free walking tour in any city they visit. Of course, tipping is essential. I know it's optional, but don't be that person. But it's a great way to get a quick feel for the city and to ask questions to local guides.
That's a big thing in South America as well. I did it in Chile and Argentina. Our son recommended them very strongly. And they're walking tours, really knowledgeable guides. They're often university students, and you tip the guide. We had really great ones in Buenos Aires and Santiago, but we've also done really cool food trips in places like New York and
Mm.
Naples.
What about standby and rush tickets if you're into theater and shows? This is more your area.
Yeah, great idea. Remember, you used to have to show up during the day and
Yeah,
line up for rush tickets.
I remember
Oh,
10 a.m. or something.
remember there's a place off Times Square if you want to
Yes,
see the
yes,
shows on
such a little
Broadway?
hut. I
Yeah,
still remember the
yeah,
sign.
and you'd have to just get tickets to whatever it was they had tickets for. I once paid for a trip to London, England, not Ontario, by writing articles.
Oh, not the good one. Okay.
This is a long time ago. By writing articles on how to do standby tickets in the West End for Toronto newspapers. But yeah, now it's mostly online. Every theater is different, but it's absolutely worth checking out because there are really great deals to be had.
Yeah, actually, for local events in general, just get it in your head to act like a local. And AI is really good at this. So check out the local scene in the same way you would check out your local scene at home, right? Tickets, events, restaurants, deals. Now, my husband always uses AI to generate a starting itinerary for however many days we are somewhere. And then he builds on that. And sometimes it comes up with really strange, but also wonderful things that you would never think to go to.
Okay, we have covered a lot of ground, so I think we should wrap up. Three key learnings for today.
First, be purposeful in your travel. Give really serious thoughts to the whys of each trip before you settle into the practicalities, because really the practicalities are the easy part. You can go online to price compare on flights and accommodation or use a travel agent like Doretta does. You can look up local tours and book museums and galleries and major sites in advance to avoid the queues and the disappointment. And there are lots of ways to save while traveling. But those are all the practicalities that you can research online. Those are the hows of travel. But the whys of travel, that's inside you, and it honestly changes over time. That's what sets your priorities. That's what really matters and what makes traveling special. Oh, and remember not to confuse price with value. Prioritize what matters most, know when to pay extra for priority access or to avoid queues or lines, and when to save with a trip to the local grocery or market.
Second, if you're going somewhere new or to dig deeper into a place that you love, just really indulge in anticipation deeply. Read, write, watch, imagine. Psychologists have found that anticipating a positive experience boosts happiness almost as much as the experience itself. I know I said that before, but you really need to hold on to that thought. It's really important.
Finally, be deeply open and honest with any fellow travelers, whether they're your partner, parent, child, or friend. Expectations around travel can be high. It's a major investment of time and money, and the price of failure can be very painful.
That's us for today. So, has our travel talk inspired you? What's your travel purpose? What's your why? How has travel changed you? Have you got some tips and tricks on saving on travel costs? If you'd like to share, why not drop us a line or 10 at notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com.
Good talk. You've been listening to Not Just Money with Doretta and Li. Click on the show's description for links to resources related to today's conversation. Our aim is to share sources that provide objective information that can help you make informed financial decisions. Please rate and review our show. If you'd like to get in touch with us, email us at notjustmoneypodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to be featured on the show, you can send us your questions and comments by a written email, audio file, or video file. Please include your name and city. This show is produced and edited by Lee, with original music by Leo Zhang cello and artwork by John Tu. Now for some legalese. Please note that the views expressed by our hosts and guests are theirs alone and should not be viewed as financial advice. This podcast is intended to be entertainment and educational in nature. Please seek additional professional support or information before acting on any podcast information. As always, good talk.